All right. Hello. As you can see from the title, we got digital metaphysics broken down into a couple different segments: a new model, non-local realism, programs, and simulating stories. So these will be the chapters, and we'll underline the chapters as we go through. So we'll start with a new model, and this will be how we mark the different segments. So as we start with a new model, it's important for us to realize that reality is in fact experienced through a metaphysic. In fact, every word that is spoken through a metaphysic. It's spoken through an intention. It's spoken through a program. It's spoken through a way of seeing. So at the seed, or at the fundamental level of consciousness, is a metaphysic. You can't experience or live without a metaphysic, without some sort of orientation, without code or programs that are running and orienting you to different things. So this model that we were introduced to when many of us were younger was a very linear model. So let's start with the old model, right? So this is your old model, okay? Your old model is something like, there's this mysterious linear bang, and then there's this mysterious thing called, this linear time, right? And it goes in this direction, and and then you have this weird thing called, these weird galaxies form, and then again, more time, right? and then you get this, this model of okay, here's an Earth, and here's a star, right? Oh, it's just too good sometimes. Okay. So, and then you're basically taught that, you know, you're, you're here. It's a, 13.8, billion year old universe. And that, there's these, the world is in the world is independently existing place from consciousness. right? So that this is physical, it's solid, it's locally real, it's independently existing from consciousness or from the observer. Meaning, like your computer or your phone that you're using to watch this right now, or TV, that object independently exists in a place called space-time or universe without the observer, without you, without consciousness, which is a pretty absurd statement. That something like an object could exist independently from there being an observer or there being a consciousness that is experiencing that object. You see how absurd that is? See how absurd this old model is? Right? So, this is such a good start already. I love it. Oh man. Okay. And then there's a whole nother story that we're taught that really you teach yourself. Consciousness teaches itself this story for it to go on this journey or this adventure of forgetting itself and remembering itself, waking up to what it is. Because it's such a good story that is sold that in this physical, solid, independently existing world from consciousness, there are these things called, others. And that those others, you are separate from. You are not related. You're not related to the others. So that's the story that we're told, that we teach ourselves, is that we're separate from these others, that there's not a unity of consciousness. It's not the same consciousness that's looking at itself and in relation with itself. That we have these imaginary borders that exist, which say, these are our right? We have these imaginary borders or boundaries. And that's where a lot of this whole idea of like immoral or unethical, it really originates from this. Like this is sort of the seed that then grows into that tree. Because if you believe in the lore, in the story, in the program, that we're separate from each other, that we're not a unified consciousness, that then you'll have more of a tendency to be willing to behave unethically and extract or be greedy or be corrupt or be selfish or manipulate or want more for yourself, and pretend like you have no relation to those others, so that their lives don't matter, etc. So you see how that's that story, that lore spurs that whole, catastrophe in a way, which is really sort of the drama that consciousness wants to explore with itself, which we'll get to later. And this is really the origin, of all border wars, of all religious conflicts, of all military industrial complexes, perverse incentives in the pharmaceutical industry or in the media and propaganda industry, or even in the economic fabric of society. So this is the old model. This is lore. And it's just lore. This is a story. This is a model, right? It's a metaphysic. It's your way of seeing from consciousness right now. Right now, your direct experience is consciousness. And then, okay, just checking that camera. And then from that direct experience of consciousness now is a metaphysic. It's a way of seeing, right? It's a model, a program, a script. So either you're going to be seeing from this old angle where, another way to say it is, you're really an entity in time, right? And this is basically suffering. So as long as you believe in the lore or the model that you're an entity in time, you exist inside of physically real time and space. You're not consciousness. You're not infinite. That you're gonna suffer. You're gonna have pain. You're gonna have anxiety. Really, suffering and anxiety is the other really big word, right? You're anxious. That's the thing. You're anxious. You're restless. It's like, I'm a separate entity in time. I'm finite. I have to do something really important and really meaningful with my life because I don't feel whole. I feel unfulfilled. And so we need to investigate these assumptions. You see, we need to investigate our models, investigate our programs, investigate our identity, investigate our way of being. And so let's now do the new model. It's a little hard to see. Let me switch to the darker green. That's better. It's hard to contrast it with the blue, though. How about the purple? Yeah, I think this is going to be the best. Yeah, let's try that. Let's go with the purple. All right. So now in the new model, essentially the symbols, there's really two symbols that we want to use to make us feel rooted and to make us feel whole. And it's a tree and then really a circle, which is, it's basically this, the leaf structure of the tree. So you have, it's really a tree plus sign, a circle, which you could also say is a cycle or a loop. So then we're suggesting in the new model is that the root of the tree, of what you are, of what infinity is consciousness. Going up the tree, and we'll go ahead and we'll write it. Let's draw a very relatable symbol. So up the trunk, we have DNA as a symbol for code or programs, right? And then we have reality. So these words are also important to say are equivalent to or interchangeable with so consciousness, gravity, bootloader, and you could even put down here God, simulator, so that ties together the root of the metaphysics, which then through the programs or the scripts or the codes or the ideas is another great word for this. Through what is put in the program slot of the bootloader, you're running a code or running a program or running an ideology that then generates the reality or experience, which we're going to just write as the two letters XP, experience. Love that from gaming so much. Experience, information, it's really your texture, your sensations, what appears, right? Your appearance. Okay. So this new model is a consciousness-centered model. So this old model is really a time-based model. It's a local realism model. There's a physical, independently existing place called a universe and a world that exists without consciousness. And then it just so happens that consciousness comes and goes, arises and passes within this physical space. Whereas this new model, which is really also an ancient model, it's really perhaps even the most ancient model, it's the well of all existence, that's really never changed. It's never moved, it's never changed. These are very important ways of understanding. Let's say, so write it in this color. Never moves, never changes, yet freely, creatively, simulates whatever it wants. And so the new way of seeing and being is a unified way of seeing and being. So when you're seeing and being and experiencing with your family or your friends or work or whatever you're doing it from a place of unification. You're doing it from a place of infinity. You're doing it from a place of love and wholeness. You're doing it from that place. By the way, this is not supposed to be better. It's a very important way of understanding the cyclic nature of reality and consciousness and experience. The point isn't to transition the entire world or humanity to this way of seeing or being. That's not the point. The point is, for whoever feels like they want to transition to this new model, or that they've been feeling this new model is the nature of reality or existence, then they just come from this model. They experience reality from this model. They experience joy, creativity, and freedom and being from this model. When tough things happen, they experience it from this model. They see it as a learning experience for themselves. You know, they see it as they're trying to learn more about the nature of consciousness, even if it includes crying or pain or grieving or suffering or hard things. Hard things through the lotus, right? The roots are in muddy water, but you get this beautiful flower, right? So through the lotus, you actually get to learn. You get this wisdom through that tough process. All right. That's pretty good for a new model. So that's the first chapter, let's say, of this digital metaphysics. So now we'll go ahead and let's end the stream on the chapter, and then we'll start a new stream for the next chapter. So that way they'll be little packaged, hopefully around 30 minutes or less content per chapter, and that will be pretty accessible. All right. Yeah. Thanks for tuning into the first one, and feel free to jump into the comments and chit chat below, and much love. Thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one.